Hey, yo, everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Batman, The Black Mirror. Scott Snyder. You can't really throw the name Batman around these days without throwing around the name Scott Snyder, because he has been such an influence on Batman the past 3 or so years. See, he's currently writing Batman in the New 52, but before he started writing Batman in the New 52, he wrote Batman on Detective Comics. And he didn't write Bruce, rather, he wrote Dick. And he introduced a lot of stuff into the Batman universe. Namely, he introduced, or reintroduced, James Gordon Jr., but not as a supporting cast member to the Batman family, but rather as a villain to the Batman family, but a different kind of villain. Not a flashy, colorful, or disfigured, distraught villain, but rather someone that looks normal, someone that talks normal, but someone who is definitely not normal. We see in this book, Batman the Black Mirror, Dick Grayson had to face the most challenging, daunting task of his career, facing the exact opposite of him, looking into the Black Mirror. Can Dick Grayson do that and come out unscathed? Or will unfortunately the wounds and damages be done and Dick Grayson find out exactly how tough it is to be the Dark Knight? Now, the story is structured in a 3 chapter way, or at least it looks like it's in a 3 chapter way, and it all kind of connects together at the end. The first chapter is the Black Mirror story, which deals with a auction going around, and this auction is selling off various different items that belong to supervillains and even the Batman family in Gotham. And what this auction is they'll have something like the crowbar that was used to beat Jason Todd to death, and they would sell it off to the highest bidder. Or maybe they would have Robin's mask during a mission, or maybe some of Bane's venom in a vial. They would have these items and auction them off. Dick Grayson goes to investigate this. However, his investigation goes a little haywire when he is exposed to a neurotoxin that causes him to constantly be in fear and in paranoia. Not like extreme fear like the toxin that the scarecrow does, but rather just a constant itch, a nagging on the back of your head when you're doing things. Enough to throw him off his game. The next story, the second chapter, deals with the return of the Zuko family, but a little different than you would think. It's not going to be Tony Zuko, but rather his daughter, who is an upstanding citizen who owns a bank and helps out Gotham. However, Dick Grayson doesn't fully believe that she's genuine, at least not at first, because, well, she's a Zuko, and it's the Zuko family, Tony Zuko in particular, that killed Dick Grayson's parents. And he just doesn't trust anyone with that name association. Even if they change their name, even if they never met their father, he still doesn't trust them. Which brings us to our final chapter that kind of brings everything together. Because, see, throughout the first 2 chapters, we're exposed to James Gordon Jr. He returned, he said he's reformed, that he's okay, that he's taking medication, that he wants to be an upstanding citizen. However, things are just not adding up. Clues are coming out, and mysterious disappearances are happening. People are getting targeted in the Gordon family, and the Joker is possibly on the loose. And all this, again, is connecting to James Gordon Jr. So, what exactly is wrong with Jr.? What is going on in his head that makes him so dark and twisted? And is he really capable of doing the things that everyone says he does? Or is he just misunderstood? Maybe he's the product of something darker and deeper in Gotham. Well, just gonna have to read and see. Let's get into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get this. Good. It's almost kind of silly to talk about the Black Mirror and say, well, let's talk about the good, bad, and whether or not you should get it. because I'm going to lay this out for you guys right now up front. This is a fantastic book. A fantastic book. A great collection of stories. And for me, there's two things that stand out the most to me. The first and foremost is the characterization of two characters, Dick Grayson and James Gordon. And then the second thing is dialogue. Those are the two things that come out strongest to me because see in this Dick Grayson is constantly challenged by the dark underbelly of Gotham. That he's constantly challenged by the most heinous and darkest things. And see, Dick Grayson is not Bruce Wayne. As much as he tries to be Batman, he is not Bruce Wayne's Batman. See, Dick Grayson is what I like to think, and what is shown in this, the epitome of a good person. He generally believes in the best of people. Where Bruce will write out that there's nothing redeemable about X person here, Dick Grayson will try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Dick Grayson will try to see if he can help that person out and change him for the better. It's just who Dick Grayson is. He is a good person. And throughout this book, it is that good person mentality that he has that's being used against him, that is being seen as a weakness, but in actuality, it's actually a strength. It is his greatest weapon. It's the fact that Dick Grayson doesn't walk that shady gray line. He is completely on the side of good. He is a absolutely genuine nice person. He has a heart of gold. And no matter how dark things get, he sticks to his morals, to his belief system. And he's faced up against James Gordon, who is the exact opposite of him, where Dick Grayson has these morals and these values and this empathy. James Gordon has no morals, has no values, has no empathy. It's not like he's the Joker where he's crazy and he goes around and spontaneously causes chaos. This is a man that has no feelings whatsoever. He simply kills for the enjoyment out of it. He is the opposite of Dick Grayson. Which brings me to James Gordon and saying that we are introduced with a character that is the opposite of Dick Grayson, but also is, like I said, he's not flashy, he's not flamboyant, he's not colorful, he's not theatrical in his design. You don't see him going out in a purple tux or wearing a Mad Hatter hat or have a suit keeping him nice and cold below 0 degrees. He dresses like a normal individual. He is a sociopath. He has no feelings and no empathy, but he just looks like one of us. And the things that comes out of his mind, the twistedness that comes out of him is just it's unsettling, but in a good way. The way that the story needs to be unsettled. Uh, which brings us to dialogue. The dialogue is so well done in this, and particularly with James Gordon Jr., with Barbara, and then with Dick. Those are kind of the four main characters, and then the characters that really have the best dialogue throughout this comic. The interactions between all of them in their own different ways, with James Gordon Sr. with James Gordon Jr., or maybe Commissioner Gordon with Dick Grayson, or Dick Grayson with Barbara, or Barbara with James Gordon Jr., or James Gordon Jr. with Dick. The interactions between all of them are very well done, and the dialogue is just superb. Another great point to this is the art. The art is really, really gritty and really, really dark, and it does it very well. It almost reminds me of art from year one, but only a little darker. I got that sense of hopelessness and unease and despair when reading this because of the art. It may not be my cup of tea when it comes down to art, but for the sake of the story, it's done very nicely. Two other things I want to point out. One is that Scott Snyder does not pull any punches here. He pulls out all the stops, and there's some gruesome images in this, particularly what happens to Commissioner Gordon's ex-wife. In addition to that, the structure of the story is very beautiful. It is what a huge overarching story should be. Is that we have the first two chapters kind of on their own, doing their own thing, but still at the same time setting up the last chapter, setting up the characters for the last chapter, and setting up the themes for the story, mainly the trials of Dick Grayson as a character. So it does all this setup, and then it comes to full circle at the end with the final chapter. So it's a great 3 chapter story structure, and it's handled very nicely. It's very well paced. Bad. Like I said, it's kind of silly to be talking about the good and the bad in this because it is such a fantastic book, and there really isn't any bad about this. This book is welcoming and inviting to readers who have not read anything with Dick Grayson as Batman beforehand or know nothing about the Batman universe going into this, other than maybe the general facts you need to know about Commissioner Gordon, his son, Barbara, and Dick being Batman. But for someone that's kind of an outsider, it's pretty easy to get into. You don't need to read Battle for the Cowl or Batman R.I.P. or The Return of Bruce Wayne or anything leading into this. This is kind of its own standalone story. And it's kind of the last story of Batman in the new before the New 52, before Flashpoint ended. This was kind of the end, and it left off on a really good note. A chilling note, but a good note nonetheless. Whether or not you should get it, I think you guys all know the answer to that. Batman the Black Mirror is a fantastic trade. It's a fantastic collection done by a fantastic writer. The art was superb in this, and it was just very well done. We really get to see more of Scott Snyder working with Batman in the New 52 and really showing his wealth and knowledge and also his love for Batman as a character. So, with that said, this is a definite must pick up, a definite must get. And this is Andrew saying, peace out for now.